This is the Rebound Rundown. I'm your host, Paul Fritschner. Your home for college basketball in the Cincinnati area and across the country every Monday through Friday during the season. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Keegan Nickoson of Bearcat Journal is on my screen, which means that college basketball season is right around the corner. And Keegan was just telling me before we went on the air that he has been spending nights at gas stations. He's been road tripping all around the Midwest. He's been covering UC football, basketball, all the rest, because that's what he does. And it's always great to have you on, Keegan. Thanks for taking a minute this morning, and hopefully you got a little bit of sleep last night.
I got a decent amount of sleep, but it's crossover season. So at this point, it's just survival. It's not really about trying to keep yourself in good shape or good health.
Well, Bearcat football is definitely surviving and thriving right now, but we're going to talk basketball because as we record this, it's Tuesday morning. I did all 18 innings last night of the Dodgers Blue Jays. You told me you did not, and I don't blame you given your sleep schedule. So let's talk basketball, and that starts next Monday. Before I get into some specifics, I always start just your overall takeaways from the preseason, where Cincinnati's sitting right now. Obviously, Jalen Haynes, Jizzle James, not a part of the team right now. Jalen Haynes, that lingering injury issue is a massive storyline when he's going to return. Jizzle James won't be on the team at all. You're down two major players from this team, but what are some overall takeaways from the offseason?
Yeah, I think for the first time under a Wes Miller team, like the pieces kind of make sense. Like they fit together in terms of how he built the roster. Last year, you were just looking at a ton of talent, and that's not an excuse at all. Like that team should have absolutely made the tournament. But you look at guys like Dylan Mitchell. He was pretty consistent, but just didn't live up to what they wanted to get from him. Jizzle James had a disappointing year when you compare it to his freshman year and the jump he should have taken. Dan Skillings was pretty disappointing. So just no one really lived up to what they were supposed to do. Simas Lukosius as well. I mean, he started the season as one of the best shooters in the country and then just tapers off and you don't really see him much the rest of the year. So this team, in terms of the physicality that the Big 12 kind of demands, the size that they demand, you have two guys who could likely get drafted next year in Shana Baev and Mustafa Cham. It makes more sense. What I will say, the Jalen Haynes injury is a big piece because in terms of that physicality, he was kind of going to be the leader in the clubhouse. He was going to get down there and throw elbows and kind of establish himself in the paint. And you saw it against Arkansas when they were just dominating in the paint. Against UC, and that game was never really close. So I would say the pieces fit together. In my experience covering UC, I think I've just kind of learned that I'm not taking anything really seriously until the Big 12 schedule, because last year they beat Ohio State in an exhibition by 35 points. And then they go to the non-con. They beat Xavier. They beat Dayton. They beat Georgia Tech by like 35 points in Atlanta. And then you're thinking this team's going to be like top 3 or 4 in the Big 12. They're going to be a 5-4 seed in the tournament. And then they lose like however many of their first 8 Big 12 games and everything just starts to unravel. So I'm kind of treating it as 2 seasons, the non-con and the Big 12. And then we'll see what happens in the first month of the Big 12 schedule.
Yeah, Cincinnati definitely did challenge themselves this year in the non-conference. A couple of bye games to start, but then it's Dayton at home. You have Louisville down in the neutral site game at Heritage. Obviously, the shootout play against Georgia, Clemson. There are tests, and those Georgia and Clemson games. Both of those teams should be very good this year. Respectable teams. So. Have you talked to Wes about the scheduling philosophy this year and maybe throwing a few more challenges on there before Big 12?
Yeah, I think it was Ryan Roberts asked him about that at Big 12 Media Days, and he basically said he just wanted to put his team in the best position to have success in the Big 12. I feel like the last few years, he kind of didn't challenge his team as much in terms of a non-conference slate. Like he had Xavier and Dayton. Those are 2 really good teams. And then he sprinkled in Georgia Tech for a home and home. But then outside of that, you had the Big East Big 12 challenge with Villanova, which Villanova wasn't exactly a great team, but you still lost that game. I think this is him saying, okay, if that didn't work, if kind of having the softer non-conference schedule and then just saying, okay, we're going to have a tough Big 12 schedule that we have to make sure we're ready for. If that didn't work, let's try the other way. And let's see if we can really, really challenge these guys in the non-conference and then have them more prepared for the Big 12 slate. So we'll see. I really like the Clemson and Georgia games. I think they're neutral site. Obviously, Xavier and Dayton are awesome. And then that Louisville game could be a huge tell because that one's pretty early. That's like late November. I think that's still when football season's going on. So that'll be a real overreaction by the fans, whether they win or lose. It'll either be we're a top 10 team or this team's going to miss the tournament again. But I mean, the replies I was getting during the Arkansas game, it was like, I don't know how you guys survive a full season. Like it's just like this straight up and down. But yeah, I think I really, really like what he did, especially getting Louisville back on the schedule, because I remember growing up watching Cincinnati, those Patino and Mick Cronin games were always a blast to watch. I think Russ Smith, Luke Hancock, is that his name? Yeah, he was really good on those Louisville teams. So I'm excited for that one. That's probably one of my favorite games this year that I'm going to get to cover.
Yeah, in the way that they structured it, coming off of 2 exhibition games against high major teams on the road. Now, again, we can do the whole song and dance of do exhibition games matter, but you look really good against Michigan in the first half. Then Michigan kind of changes their pace of play, their style in the second half, puts up over 50 points. UC still wins the game, but it's a whole lot closer than it was in the first half. And then Cincinnati looks like a completely different team against Arkansas, which is why you then hear the chorus of, don't worry about the exhibition games. Yeah. But you're trying to balance it in your head as a Cincinnati fan. Which game am I supposed to care about? Right? Am I supposed to hang on to the Michigan game? Or is the Arkansas game what we're going to be subjected to? Yeah. Do you think where's the middle ground there, Keegan? Because you were there. Where do you feel like this team is lying right now?
Well, I can tell you Cincinnati fans are hanging on the Arkansas game in my experience. They're definitely more worried about that than the Michigan win. You have to take into account that Ademara and Morris Johnson Jr. didn't play for Michigan. Jalen Celestine didn't play for UC in that game, but that's kind of an uneven comparison in terms of I think those are 2 possible starters for Michigan. But what you saw in the Michigan game was everything that West recruited in these transfer players. That's what they did. And the high school guys. Like Sean Abayev had 15 points and he was making some stupid shots. Sincere Harris had 5 steals, and he's known as like one of the better defenders in the country in terms of on-ball defending. And then Mustafa Cham was good down low. Baba Miller was good down low. And then you get to Arkansas, and your leading scorer is Halvin Zella with 10 points. And I think 6 or 9 of those were in garbage time with like 5 minutes left. And like the offense is just non-existent. The transition defense was atrocious. And that's word for word what Wes Miller told me after the game. But he's not freaking out. I think he knows that, look, he even said in a press conference, and the quote got taken out of context by everyone, but he said, when we beat Ohio State by 35 in that exhibition last year, I don't remember anyone bringing that up on Selection Sunday. It's like, oh, Cincinnati, they need to be in because they beat Ohio State by 35. So he understands what he has to do. I think the Jalen Haynes injuries, it might change some stuff in terms of what he does lineup-wise, maybe how they play a little bit, just because you don't really have a player like that left on the roster. I guess Mustafa Cham would be called upon to be that physical guy down low. But I think the exhibitions showed that this is a Cincinnati basketball team who you have no idea what they're going to be until like mid-February. And then if they can go on a run then and make the tournament, get off the bubble, then that's going to be the best team Wes Miller's had here.
What do you think the ceiling and the floor of this team is, just from a talent perspective and what they could do?
That's a great question.
Thank you.
Ceiling and floor. I feel like the ceiling, in terms of the talent that they have on the team and guys who could possibly get drafted next year, is like a 4 or 5 seed. Like, I think that they could very comfortably be in the big dance. That the ceiling is Shana Bayev is your leading scorer, playing like 28 minutes a game, 30 minutes a game. He's shooting like 39-40% from three, and he's your go-to guy on offense. So you give him the ball and he's going to go get a basket. The ceiling is Mustafa Cham is averaging probably 12, 13 points a game with a few blocks and like leading the Big 12 in blocks, which I think he did last year. Maybe it was a true freshman stat. And then Day Thomas and Sincere Harris are some of the best defenders in the Big 12. So if everyone plays to their identity and does what they're supposed to do, I think that 4 or 5 seed line should be pretty gettable, and they could maybe even go higher. I'm just weary of those ceiling questions because someone asked me that before a football season, and I said Emory Jones could be like a dark horse for Heisman, and then he ended up being one of the worst quarterbacks that Cincinnati's ever had in program history. So
you could have just taken layaway on that and said Brendan Sorsby, and then you would have been a genius. So it's okay.
Yeah. There's a guy coming.
You just mixed up the quarterbacks. It's all right.
There's a guy coming who's going to play 6 games for Indiana as a redshirt freshman. He's going to be.
Yeah, that's our guy. Yeah.
Yeah. I think the floor is probably what has happened the last 2 years, to the point where there's just those lulls in the Big 12 schedule where you lose 3 to 4 games in a row. And then it just starts to snowball, and you're not on the bubble. You're one of those 4 to 5 teams just off the bubble. I think there's just too much talent for them to be like a bottom 3, bottom 4 team in the Big 12. So I would say that the floor is basically where they've been the last 2 years. And then the difference being 3 to 4 wins in the Big 12. And playing Kansas on the road isn't great. Maybe you get a win against Houston for the first time as a Wes Miller team. That could be a big differential. But I have no idea with these UC teams. That's what I've learned. I mean, with football and basketball, you can make a prediction before the year and they just look like an absolute idiot.
Well, if you look at Cincinnati's schedule, there's no stretch, to me at least, that sticks out as overly impossible. I mean, there's a tough stretch at the end of January where you're at Arizona and Arizona State on that West Coast swing, and then you come home against Baylor and then go to Houston. That's probably the most difficult stretch of the season. But even that, you have an Arizona State team that's picked at the bottom of the Big 12, sandwiched in the middle. And then you have Baylor at home. That's at least not on the road. So it's not impossible, but it's probably the most difficult stretch of the season. And that, to your point, that's the stretch to me, Keegan, that I look at that sticks out as that's the turning point of the season. And maybe you disagree with me, but that's the part of the season where in years past with Cincinnati under Wes Miller, things have fallen apart. And that's where you come to a decision day at the end of January. What is this team? And if you've won games up to that point, at that point, you could be playing for seeding, or are you playing for, hey, let's not be in the first bracketology reveal on that first Friday of February? That's where things start to shift. Is there any other segment of the schedule that sticks out?
I think that Texas Tech, Oklahoma State, BYU, TCU at the end of the year, and especially being at the end of the year, if they're going to be a team that hasn't really established themselves and has been up and down, that's going to be a tough one. Because, I mean, at TCU can be tough, especially on the road. BYU, I think, could be one of the best teams in the country by the end of the year. Like, I'm higher on them than most people who think that if you just get so much talent together, it doesn't mean it's going to work. But I just think they have way too much. But other than that, I definitely see what you're saying about not having that difficult to stretches. The only thing I'll say is with these teams in the Big 12, like I feel like Cincinnati's never really lost a tough game and then bounced back and beat a really good team. It's been like you lose the tough games until you get a team that you can beat, and then you win that game, and then hopefully you can get something rolling, and then it just snowballs when it doesn't work. So yeah, I think the start of the schedule is big for them, and they have Houston to open the conference schedule at home, which is a double sword to the chest, because one, you're probably going to lose that game, and then it's going to be, oh, they still can't beat Houston. and you lost at home. Like that's going to be doubly difficult. Then you go to West Virginia, UCF, Colorado. So they could start 3-1, which would be a good jump. And then, as you said, you have Iowa State, Arizona, Arizona State, Baylor, Houston. So it could very quickly even out. So I just think that Wes has to get through to his guys. And they have multiple Big 12 veterans on the team from other schools like Kirk Risa, Jalen Celestine, that the bad days are going to happen and to not let it snowball, because that's been the biggest thing that has hurt them in the past 2 years.
Who's somebody throughout the offseason that maybe hasn't gotten the love you feel like they deserve from reports that you've heard that maybe could surprise some people from this roster?
Mustafa Cham and Shanabayev have. I think they're going to be two good players. I'm going to say Sincere Harris has gotten enough love just as we've touted him as a really good defender, and so is Wes. I think Jordi Rodriguez is going to be really good. I think he could end up being what Simas Lukosius was supposed to be, kind of that foreign guard wing that comes in and is supposed to shoot the lights out.
I was going to say, so he's adjusted well.
Yeah, and Wes said it, like he said those guys that come over from Europe. Is he the Atari's from Brazil? Yeah, because he came with Baba Miller. So Jordi Rodriguez is from Spain.
Yeah.
Wes said those guys usually have a long adjustment that they have to make, and he's been pleased with how quickly he's been able to adjust. Now, you can take that with a grain of salt because it's coach speak. But from what I saw, it looks like he's where he's supposed to be offensively and defensively. I'm not going to say he's a shutdown defender by any means, but he also shoots the ball confidently, like, and aggressively, to the point where you kind of like, is that Kirk Risa? Like, with how he's taking shots with a hand in his face and like kind of off the dribble and in transition. So I would look out for him to kind of be that guy that you've just never heard of, that all of a sudden is one of the most important players on the team. Kind of like not that he plays like Moncholovich, but he's just that guy of, wow, they're missing Jordi Rodriguez. If he misses with injury, that might be a big difference. With just how they play and how deep they are. And then obviously I'm a big Day Thomas fan. I love the guys that stick around through the tough times, and like he could have gone somewhere and probably made way more money. He's a really good defender, and he's actually been one of their best 3-point shooters the past 2 years, which might be more of a more of a condemnation on the other 3-point shooters who haven't lived up to it. But Day, he's made some big shots in big situations. And he's able to drive the hoop really well and score. So I think in terms of all around players, defense and offense, he could be one of the better players on the team.
All right. Last question. I'll put you on the spot here. Some people don't like doing this. So if you don't want to do it, don't worry. 31 games. Give me how many wins. And if they make the NCAA tournament, what seed they'll be.
Okay. I'm going to do a real quick run through of the schedule.
Ken Palm.
Okay.
Now take it with a grain of salt because there's so many new players everywhere in college basketball. Okay. Ken Palm's tough. Ken Palm has them right now projected at 20-11.
20-11. Okay.
That's a preseason Ken Palm projection for Cincinnati. 20-11, 9-9 in the Big 12, and 36th overall in the country. That's where they're starting the season.
I'm just counting losses here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Am I gone? Okay. 20-11.
Yeah.
I have that same exact number.
Okay. So that probably
with the loss at TCU at the end of the year.
Lost at TCU. Okay, so that probably puts you, I don't know, maybe in the 5, 6, 7 range.
Yeah, hopefully.
5's probably on the 20, top end there.
I feel like 20-11. You could get. I counted 2 wins against West Virginia. You could say they lose one of those very easily, and I wouldn't argue with you. I counted a win at Arizona State. You could say they lose there. I wouldn't argue with you. But other than that, it's kind of win the games you're supposed to win, lose the games you're supposed to lose. Maybe they can flip. Who do they play? Maybe they can beat Baylor at home. That's very possible. I counted Baylor winning that game.
Yeah.
It would be hilarious to see Dan Scaling score like 25 points in front of the home crowd when they're booing him the entire time.
Well, I wasn't going to say that, but since you said it, yes. I mean, we all know that's probably going to happen, right?
Yeah.
And Dylan Mitchell, I mean, I know you're not playing St. John's, but like that's probably the same type of deal, just the way that those two guys have transferred out and have already talked about their roles.
Yeah.
Like that's what it's setting up for. Yeah.
Dylan Mitchell makes so much more sense at St. John's compared to Cincinnati. Like his style of play fits the Big East.
Yeah. 20 wins probably puts you maybe in that like higher end 5 and 6 is probably out of reach unless the in those 20 wins you're beating Kansas and Houston. But 20 wins probably puts you more in that like 7, 8, top end of 9 range, depending on what those wins and losses are. Which
fans would be ecstatic with. Because like right now it's just like the football team. It was just get to a bowl game. And then now it's like, holy crap, go to the Big 12 championship. So maybe the basketball team can do the same thing and very quickly raise the standards. But I think you will learn a lot about this team in the first 4 games. How they play in those first 4 games of the Big 12 schedule. Houston, West Virginia, UCF, Colorado. The West Virginia and UCF games being on the road. I think you'll learn a lot about them there. And that you have in the last 2 years, how they started Big 12 play.
Keegan, get some sleep. I appreciate you always for coming on the show. Thanks again. Tell people if they want to follow you, where they can follow you and read your stuff.
Yeah, follow at Nickoson42 on Twitter, and then make sure to check out Bearcat Journal for all your Cincinnati needs. We've got some VIP stuff. We've got some free stuff that we post. So if you're curious about Cincinnati and the basketball team, I'm still doing a lot of football content right now, but obviously basketball is going to come, and I'm going to get all that content out there as well. So it should be a really fun season at Fifth Third Arena.
Appreciate you, Keegan. As always, talk again soon here once the season gets rolling. Thanks again.
Thank you.